there I am doing it, okay? So what do you understand by higher and lower order of thinking skills or cognitive skills, in fact? Why higher and lower order? What do you reckon it might be?
I think that you need the lower things to be able to do the higher things.
Okay, right. That there is some kind of progression, let's say.
Yes.
When you see this triangle, does it ring any bell? This pyramid?
The food chain? The food chain?
But also Maslow's pyramid, perhaps?
Okay, Maslow's, right? Right. The thing is that what the taxonomy implies is that if you go to the layer, let's say the base of this pyramid, you've got remember, right? Now, it means that if you move up, right, if you come to the station where you understand, right, it means that in order to understand, you remember. That is to say, these layers, right, pile up, and the one on top compresses, right, and includes the ones that are at lower levels, okay? Right? So if you come to the station where you are able to create, it means that you are able to evaluate, analyze, apply, understand, and remember. And why do you think that this, let's say, very simple classification, this taxonomy, helps us in lesson planning? What do you think we're going? Is it just for setting goals? For borrowing the words?
It's for the grading. So we go from simpler to more complicated activities and I mean, required skills.
In fact, it has to do with grading tasks and also setting aims. So we can use Blue's taxonomy as a guide, right, to guarantee that we are not skipping, right, processes of development and progression of activities, right? It is, let's say, sound to go to grade our activities from, let's say, something that has to do with recognition and then move on to more elaborated thinking, let's say, or cognitive skills, right? Why? Because in a way, we guarantee the learners that they are developing towards more complex thinking, right? Why? Because if you jump, right, from, let's say, something that has to do with remembering facts onto something that means or entails analyzing or evaluating information, then, I mean, understanding and applying are skipped, what happens? Well, it may be that some students won't be able to cope with that, right? So in a way, we need, right, or it is advisable if you've got a mixed ability class, that generally we do, right, to try to cater for all the steps, right? So that is why when they criticize the fact that some, let's say, plannings may be linear, I think that it's not a bad idea. Because when you are linear, sometimes what happens? You are, let's say, you, I mean, may be a bit predictable. But in terms of organization and, let's say, unfairness for all the, let's say, the students, it is worth, let's say, being predictable. So it's better to do it this way rather than being disorganized disorganized or chaotic, and then in a way your students may be neglected because they are not able, or some of them are not able to cope with this. I don't know. My question is, have you read the chapter on lessons learned about lesson planning?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
there are some things that sort of caught my attention in terms of the ideas that were stated. But one of the things is that when they talk about, let's say, writing the goals, right? The authors state that we use should, right? Why is it so?
We use what? Sorry, I didn't.
The word
I can.
should. By the end of the lesson, students should be able to.
Because we expect that, but it's not 100% sure to happen.
Right, okay. Because in a way we may sound categorical if we say will, that, I mean, can you guarantee that, right? It much depends. Remember that the lesson plan is something that is flexible, and it is always submitted to, let's say, on the spur of the moment, let's say, changes, right? So that is to say, maybe you have a goal for, or a couple of goals for a lesson, and then, I mean, something happens in between, right? And, well, you are not able to comply with it. So what happens with the aim, right? If you have assured that it was going to be attained, well, that's why, right? It's better to use should be able, but there was, I mean, he separated, or the authors separated the, I mean, the goal into three parts, like A, B, and C, right? Now, the A was for, do you remember? The audience, okay? That's to say, who your students are, right? Then the B, it has to do with the behavior. That is to say, the actions. The actions you want the students to do, right? What you expect them to be able to do. And then the last one, it has to do with what? The conditions, how they are going to do it. Now, in the A, let's say, item, the authors wrote all the students, most of the students, some of the students, half of the students. What do you think about that? If we talk about fairness. Is it logical to plan a lesson for half of the students attaining a goal?
I think that
No.
is like a prejudice. I mean, you expect some students to achieve a particular goal, but others not.
Yes, I mean, in a way, you are discriminating, or at least saying that only some of them will be able to attain. I mean, the fact that we are teachers, educators, we have to plan lessons that will, in the best of hopes, guarantee that all the students have access to, let's say, attaining those goals, or the opportunity, not access. Do you understand what I mean? So I was surprised when I read that, right? I mean, if you write in your goals that some of the students will be able to do such and such a thing, and what about the rest? Are you going to give them extra, let's say, lessons? What are you going to do, right? Of course, we can never guarantee that all of them will be, but we have to be hoping for that. And in a way, we have to plan towards that, at least to offer the opportunities to all of them. And when I say to all of them, not just for the ones that are capable, between inverted commas, according to my view, right? So can you tailor a lesson that is only for those students who really do very well? Because in a way, if you write that some of the students will be able to do such and such a thing, well, you are tailoring a lesson for skilled students. Okay, so we have to, I mean, when we read, let's say, books about methodology, we have to be critical, right? I was, in a way, surprised by this. I want to say it. I mean, I wouldn't like to read a lesson plan where you just, let's say, plan for some. Because in fact, if you think that only some students will be able to attain those goals, it means that you're planning for some people, not for all your students. All right, and that's a serious matter. Okay, right? Not everything that glitters is gold, right? And not everything that is written in a book or published in a book is, let's say, the best thing to do. Okay, and the same happens with the materials that we get from the internet. In fact, then I mean the lessons, they devise some goals for lessons that I really don't think they are, let's say, most suitable in a communicative classroom, because they were grammar focused. I don't know if you noticed that. Okay, well, let's go on. Remember, can you read? What is to remember? It is the first step. Can you think of something you do in the lesson that has to do with remember? Come on, I'm sure you're going to pop up with the word.
The warm-up.
Uh-huh.
When you recall prior knowledge.
Uh-huh, very good. Can you think of those models that we had? Right? And what else? I mean, can you think of something else we do?
Checking homework, maybe?
Yes, it's another way, okay? When you do as a warm-up, the checking homework, then the lead-in. In fact, sometimes it's very difficult to make a difference between the lead-in and the warm-up, right? Okay, but there is a difference, right? But the lead-in may be to activate schemata. Remember that? From Harmer's?
Yes.
So in a way, you're going to draw some knowledge from the students, okay? I'm going to silence my phone, all right? Hold on. Okay, there. Right. Well, when we, so what are the words or the facts that we recall? Think about verbs, actions that the students may do. Define, duplicate, list, memorize, repeat, and state. Do you think that the remember stage is just for, let's say, a warm-up or a lead-in, the very introductory phase of your lesson?
In fact, perhaps just thinking the repeating, if your focus is not mainly communicative and you want your students to have like a better pronunciation or whatever, you could use this remembering stage to help students improve that skill, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Okay, imitation, right? That is true, okay? And sometimes imitation has to do with or memorization or repeating, maybe reading aloud, right? Okay, that you ask the students to read aloud something that they have read before, okay? It has to do with activating that. But it may be the first stage, for example, when you work with the students in a letter soup, right? In a way, what do you want? You want them to memorize the words, to fix them. You have introduced new vocabulary. The first, let's say, perhaps activity that you are going to do with them, with this, let's say, with this type of words, right, is to work on a letter soup for them to recognize them. Okay, right? So, but there you are working on understanding, right? In a way, identifying, recognizing, and together with memorizing. You see? Now, pay attention to the words, okay? Classify, describe, discuss, explain, identify, locate, recognize, report, select, and translate. All right? Generally, we do activities that entail this. But sometimes we do not move much, right? That is to say, we start by recalling and then we move on to the understand, let's say, phase. And what do we do there? We sort of dwell in this level. Sometimes we move on to the apply, that is using the information in new situations that is more meaningful. Why? Because there is an element of, let's say, unexpected situations, which are new, where they are going to apply what they remember and they understand into something new. So it becomes more meaningful. So for example, you have executing, implementing, solving, using, demonstrating, interpreting, operating, scheduling, sketching. And here, for example, if I have to give you, let's say, an example, it will be sentence transformation activities. Paraphrasing, right? Because in fact, when they do is they use a model and they adapt it to the new situation using the keyword. But it is controlled anyway, right? Just to give you an example. Remember, we talked about the different types of activities. Now, these, remember, understand, and apply are in the lower thinking order. Whereas you have analyze, evaluate, and create for the higher, right, thinking order. Why? Because in analyzing, okay, many, let's say, many aspects play a part. When you analyze, right, you go up in a, let's say, on the ladder of thinking hierarchy. Why? Because you are not going to do it, let's say, as if it were in a capsule. You are sort of connecting with your own schema, right? And trying to establish a comparison or contrast, making distinctions, right? And perhaps in a way, trying to take the first steps into experimenting on your own without so much guidance. Any questions so far? Can you think of a task where you analyze, where, I mean, the activities you do have to do with analyzing?
For example, those filling the gaps using more than one verb tense, when you have to analyze the context or certain ideas in order to decide which tense you're going to use. Is that the case?
Where you have to analyze what?
The grammatical context in order to decide which verb tense are you going to use.
Well, that is very vague because it much depends on the type of, on the complexity of the task, right? You mean put the verbs in the correct tense?
Yes. and mix, for example, 2 or 3 verb tenses in a text.
Okay, well, if the students have to decide on 2 verb tenses and which one to be used, well, it could be differentiating. Yes, right? But generally, when you analyze, you have to say why. You have to be able to, let's say, acknowledge, right? That. Let's say you have to be ready. Not just to do it out of, because otherwise it will be just application. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Can you think of another one?
I was thinking perhaps of those exercises where you have to choose a title, but to a paragraph, but you have to underline or have different phrases that led you to choosing that title in particular, not others.
There is another one, right? Okay, very good.
It could be an exercise.
Sorry, I cannot hear you. If you speak louder, I am putting my volume up too.
Yes, could it be an exercise where students have to identify sentences and label them as, for example, identify a supportive sentence, a transition sentence, and so they have to identify the sentences in a paragraph and label them?
If the sentences are, let's say, already produced and they don't, when you analyze, evaluate, and create, there is something that you are producing. So, for
Okay.
example, as Clara said that you have to give a title to a text, there you are doing some kind of, according to your analysis of the text, you are going to produce a title, right? But if you are given, let's say, the sentences and you have to insert them as a gapped text, it's not.
Okay.
Okay? Because you are not creating anything. Do you understand what I mean? Was it Desiree, the one that was speaking?
Yes.
Okay, Desiree. So when you analyze, evaluate, and create, there is something of you that is, let's say, playing playing the game, all right?
Right.
So I guess that what you said in a way could be applying. It's understanding and applying, right?
Okay.
Now, I think that perhaps if you give the students, let's say, information, right, in a text, if you ask them, for example, to think of, not in a text, let's think that they are reading a story, right? So you ask them to compare, right? Or to mention 2 characters that are very similar in their personality, right? And say in which points or in which aspects they are different. So in that case, the students will have to produce something. They will have to analyze all the facts that they have read about the characters, and all those facts, I'm sure that they have been scattered all throughout the reading. That is not that they will find a section where they can get it. Okay? So that's why then they will work on, let's say, categories in order to compare and contrast them. All right? Now, imagine I want to go to something that is more grammatical. I may ask my students to analyze, let's say, to organize and distinguish what connectors I use when I let's say, express opinions, and which are the ones that I use when I sequence ideas or put events in order. And try to ask them if I can use these connectors in other situations. That has to do with analysis. And maybe you are dealing with a revision of cohesive devices. All right? Evaluation. There it says evaluate. Justify a stand or a decision. Appraise, argue, defend, judge, select, support, value, critique, and weigh. What do you think about this? Are we, right, in the work that you are producing with lesson plans, in what phase are we? I guess you are not going to say, remember. Not today, I mean.
You mean the task that we were supposed to do?
Yes, that you're going to present today.
I want to say create, but I'm not that sure.
Yes, it is.
Are we? Oh, okay. I thought we weren't that high.
Yes, because you're going to present your own work in terms of how you're going to organize your lesson plan. But what did you do before? When I showed you the models, what did you do? Remember that Agnes, I don't remember the names now. Agnes, there were 3 models.
Selected.
What did we do?
We selected.
Analyzing.
We in class we analyzed them. Remember?
Then
Okay.
we evaluate them.
That's it. What did you do? At home, together with your partners, what did you do? You evaluated those models according to what you needed. According not only with what you needed, but also what you knew and what you, let's say, had learned before. So that's why they are not going to be the same. Okay, so we are there. Do you think that we are there because you are, let's say, mature students?
No, I believe that we are there because we are supposed to be proficient users of the language. Maybe.
But do you think that is it because you are proficient language users you can do that?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so if you can hear me, I believe it is because we have gone over the basis and the theoretical elements that we need to evaluate and to appraise something, not just based on language proficiency.
That's it. My question is, what was the applying phase? What did you do in the applying phase?
Maybe the activity we had to do.
Which one, Federico?
The plan with the video. No.
Which one?
The mini lesson plan we had to do.
The lesson bite, you mean?
Yeah,
yes. Okay, that's it. You applied it for the first time, but then on the basis of that and thinking about what you will need in the future, you started analyzing variables. All right, okay. And What about explaining ideas or concepts? When did we do that?
When we went through the whole these ideas on the models, we explained what they meant and what we were supposed to do in each stage.
When we started talking about, let's say, lesson planning and what a lesson plan means, why it is useful, when we started understanding basic concepts that have to do with lesson planning before going into more detailed, let's say, aspects of it, right? Okay, it has to do with that. So this is the way, I mean, in fact, I am sort of thinking about this together with you, but I hadn't planned to talk about it, to analyze the work we have done, right? But, well, then I thought that it could be a good example for you to see how you go over, but it doesn't mean that you are not going to remember, understand, or apply, go over those phases if you are, let's say, mature students. It means that all the students have to go through this and can reach the creative state. Now, how do you apply, let's say, or use these higher order cognitive skills into, let's say, or with students that are, let's say, little or very young? Well, you can do it, but that's why you have to be well aware of their capabilities. That is a good idea to browse again at your notes on Piaget's, right? Erik Erikson's, okay? Because I mean, you cannot expect the students that are in primary school to do the same as you are doing. So their level of creation will be within a simplicity in itself, according to their cognitive maturity. But they have to reach a level where they evaluate. Now, the problem is that most of the educational system has been organized into, let's say, remember, understand, apply, and then jumping on to create. Analyzing and evaluating was both of them were a bit